and making a fire would be a fantastic option. All right. Something else they mentioned was the ability to lash it onto a pole and make a spear. Well, if that is my only survival blade, the last thing I want to do is lash my survival blade onto a stick and throw it, alright, or spear it at an animal or whatever, and risk losing my only cutting tool. So I don't think that's really a big need to make my knife into a spear. It's something I would not choose to do. Now you all might want to choose to do that. Maybe we could spear some fish with it, but at the same time maybe we could hit a rock and chip my blade, and then I'm out of a knife. So if it was me, I'd be a lot more careful with my blade. I would use my blade only when necessary and make tools with my blade in order to survive out in the wilderness a little bit better. Another thing that they talk about is that you can cut through an aircraft fuselage. Something about an aircraft fuselage. I've been working on aircraft for 14 years, and when it comes to jet aircraft, they have what's called ejection seats, so cutting through a fuselage is a non-issue. You will be, upon any type of trouble, you will eject from the aircraft at a high rate of speed, and you will not have time to be cutting yourself out of anything. Now in some aircrafts, like maybe C9s, the C2 Greyhound, the E2 Hawkeye, in those types of situations, maybe if you crash landed, you'd want to cut through the fuselage of those. Well, they have ribs and spars which would prevent that, and it would make it very difficult to cut through quarter-inch spars. Now, so the only arguable point is, would it be useful in a helicopter? Okay. Well, I've happened to got a little picture here of a helicopter, and this is one that I'm currently working on, and this is the MH-53, and to give you some ideas without giving you too much information on the aircraft, all these aircraft have emergency exits, and the emergency exits are designed just for that. Upon crash landing, all these windows will pop out or can be kicked out in order to escape from the aircraft. There is no need to break them or shatter them with the end of your knife. There's no need for that. They will all pop out, and on this side you have the emergency exit windows, which are that. You have on the other side, you would have the emergency, the exit. You would also have another window on the other side. You would also have the cargo ramp, which is in our case always open, which is big enough to drive a truck through on the MH-53. So that's a nice large exit to escape from. Upon landing, the seats of the pilots and the co-pilot will collapse. Basically, they'll be sitting on the deck when they're finished, and they're designed to collapse to absorb the shock of the crash. If you lose power or the ability to run the engines, you'll go into what's called auto rotation, which will basically lower the aircraft in a rate of speed which is, it's not crashing speed, but it's definitely fast enough where your aircraft's going to be completely destroyed, but you will still be intact. Upon crash landing, all right, you will hit the deck. The seats will collapse. You'll be sitting on the deck. The blades will most likely hit the top of the cockpit and chop the top of the cockpit off. Okay, this top of the cockpit will be completely gone. All right. So in essence, you'll be sitting on the deck, and there will be nothing to cut through because these will take care of it for you. Because it's going to be extremely violent, but it's going to chop the top of this portion off. You're not going to. You could just basically step on out. All right. But even if you wanted to cut through the fuselage, there's really no place to cut through. If you cut through here, you would be cutting into a fuel tank, But upon landing, this fuel tank will snap off and be laying on the deck over here someplace. And they're designed to snap off because they'll be full of fuel. You really don't want the fuel and all that to be spilling all over the place. These aircraft are designed to crash, not to crash, but to, when they crash, they're designed to be, you're able to exit them. And other aircraft, other helicopters are the same way. You would not be cutting through any fuselage with your knife. Guarantee it. That never would cross anybody's mind in any type of aircraft situation. Okay, so it's laughable. It truly is. The only thing that upsets me is that they create this fantasy about this knife, and people buy it for that. They believe it. I mean, you could say that if you hold this knife, you're going to due to its geometry, it's going to make you stronger than the average man. It's going to give you a 20% strength increase due to the geometry of the blade, because it brings your shoulder blades in alignment with your thrusting ability or whatever. I mean, it's laughable. What bothers me about that is that there's other choices out there that are better, and it's not insulting America. It's not saying, hey, Gerber's a horrible product. They're just like anybody else. They want to sell knives, and nothing wrong with having cool advertising and making a cool knife, which it is a cool knife. But there's better options out there. And my job is, when I review a product, I'm gonna have my views on it and point out how, with my experience on this particular platform, how these things that they're talking about, it's pretty much useless for. It's not a good stabbing blade. It's not a good fishing blade. It's not a good hunting blade. It's not a good carver. You're not going to be carving sticks with it or whittling away. It's a big, tough blade, but it's a big, tough blade that I broke the handle on in a 4-minute video, and that's a problem with me. I am not going to take a knife that I broke in a 4-minute video and trust my life with it, or even purchase it, because I want a knife that I can have fun with, like this Bravo 1. I thrashed the utter living garbage out of it, and it don't break. It doesn't snap, it doesn't wiggle funny, the rivets don't start waddling. I created no damage by utilizing this knife. That's what I'm looking for. Why buy a knife that when you do decide to use it, it breaks, when you can buy a knife that doesn't break? That's neat. I like that. So, are these some strong opinions? Sure. But there's better choices out there. Is the LMF a suitable knife? Sure. Is it worth 80 bucks? No. Is it worth maybe 35 bucks? Sure. Sure. I'd pay 35 bucks for it. But I'm not going to spend 80 bucks on that when I can go out for $100 and buy myself an outstanding Bravo 1. Alright. So, that's my video response. And these are just my opinions again. So, I enjoy talking about knives and all that kind of cool stuff. So I'm going to go downstairs and play with my daughter and family, and you guys take it easy. And later on.